Oh wow, Cleome, Chao, and Shui Yu. Pretty good units. How's the drop rates though? Oh, I hate that. Lunar Festival Cleome's Trustmaster reward is her clothes. It has good MP, good magic, and spirit. When equipped onto this Cleome only, she'll gain 500 extra magic. Still, everyone gets to benefit from the second passive, providing a nice limit burst damage boost and a double machine and Reaper killer. It's a pretty good Trustmaster reward. Her Super Trustmaster reward is a two-handed katana. It has high magic, and when equipped onto this Cleome again, gives her 500 extra magic. Still, everyone gets a second passive, a strong magic double hand boost. Onto her active abilities. Cleome's damage scales of morale. Gallant Crescendo gives her a 50% physical mitigation buff, deals damage that Chains of Bolting Strike, and fills her limit burst gauge by a little under 1/3. Sapient Crescendo gives her a 50% magic mitigation buff, Chains of Chaos Wave Awaken, and fills her limit burst gauge by the same amount. Blood Red Performance, First Movement, inflicts a 130% fire imperil, imbues fire onto Cleome, and boosts her fire damage by 60%. On the turn after that, she'll then activate the second movement, strengthening the damage modifier for base limit burst. On the turn after that, she'll then activate the final movement, strengthening everyone else's fire damage by 45%. Scarlet Sharp Note can be used once per battle. It boosts her fire damage by a whopping 150%, fills her limit burst gauge by half, fills the morale gauge, and gives her a 300% stored magic buff. Nocturnal Melodia will dispel any elemental imbues on Cleome, imbue dark onto her, and boost her dark damage by 45%. Glacial Melodia is the same thing, but ice. Passives. But for Trustmaster reward or Super Trustmaster reward equipped, Cleome gets 500 magic, which will triple as you fully raise the Brave ability. How's the Super Trustmaster reward? A big booster limit burst damage, half the cap to the chain limit boost, and 6 killers that get stronger when you level it up. Raising this to the max will let Cleome hit the cap for beasts and demons, and she also has a decent amount of physical evasion as well. At EX plus 2 she gets Musical Virtuoso, giving her an extra 1250 magic, another magic double hand boost, and her very own version of Warring Spirit, which packs some extra morale. At EX plus 3 she gets Standing Ovation, giving her 500 MP, and lets her automatically cast it every turn, filling her morale gauge. Let's look at her limit burst. It inflicts a 20% katana imperil, buffs her limit burst damage by 250%, and deals damage that scales of morale. Time to change forms. Cleome has a true Brave Shift, which has no limitations whatsoever. On to her active abilities. In this form, Cleome now has access to 2 magic spells. Enfaraga will imbue fire onto your team and buffs their fire damage by 35%. Barfaraja will boost your team's fire resistance by 200%, gives your team a 50% physical, magical, and general mitigation buff, and fills your team's limit burst gauges by a decent amount. Slayer Symphony, First Movement, can be used once per battle. It removes any magic breaks from your team, buffs their magic by 300%, and gives your team a weak double beast and demon killer. On the next turn, she'll then automatically activate the second movement, doing the same thing, but better. The magic buff rises to 350%, and the killers to 130%. On the turn after that, she'll automatically cast the final movement, activating the best version of this effect, raising the magic buff to 400% and the killers to 160%. Prodigious Protection can also only be used once per battle. It buffs your team's fire, ice, and dark resistance by 150%, gives your team a double mitigation buff against beasts and demons, and fills the morale gauge. The mitigation buffs will rise to 60% as you raise the Brave ability. Passives. They're the same. Let's look at her limit burst. It inflicts a 30% katana imperil, boosts Cleome's fire damage by 60%, and deals damage that scales with morale. On the next turn, she'll automatically cast Scarlet and Thorium too, which will boost her fire damage by 80% and strengthens the damage modifier for base limit burst. And on the third turn, she'll activate Scarlet and Thorium 3, which will boost her fire damage by 100% and add another damage modifier boost for her base limit burst. Let's rank Brave abilities. I'd prioritize a Riveting Melody to further boost her magic and strengthen her passive killers, Prodigious Protection to strengthen the mitigation buffs and lower its MP cost, and lastly Scarlet Sharp Note, as it just lowers its MP cost. Time to make a damage rotation. I'll chain with Bolting Strike, though either family is fine. Start with her Brave Shift. On turn 1, cast Blood Red Performance, First Movement, Slayer Symphony, First Movement, and Gallant Crescendo. On turn 2, triple cast Gallant Crescendo. On turn 3, use her Limit Burst. On turn 4, double cast Gallant Crescendo and cast Scarlet Sharp Note. On turn 5, switch back and use her base Limit Burst. Repeat the rotation from here. So, EX2? It's pretty useful, though not as necessary for most other units. In Cleome's case, she appreciates the extra stats more than Warring Spirit, as her kit would prefer some time to ramp up her damage. EX plus 3 buffs her MP, not her magic, and she doesn't have an ability that scares off down in the first place. The morale regen will be cool in morale fights though. So, how good is Lunar Festival Cleome? Overall, she's a pretty strong damage dealer, but the word temporary plagues her kit. Her elemental resistance buffs, species mitigation, magic buffs, and killers are all on Magnet's abilities, and once they're gone, you can't use them again. They're nevertheless strong, but ultimately not reliable if you need them past 5 turns. Otherwise, you're left with Enfaraga, which is good but average, and Blood Red Performance, which doesn't give your team that 45% amplification buff until 2 turns after it's been used. Barfaraja is a good spell, but otherwise it's pretty clear that Cleome's not meant to be a premier fire supporter. She is, however, a powerful fire damage dealer. Her Magnet's buff is the clear obvious, but with her Brave Shift's Limit Burst, she's able to regularly benefit from a 100% fire amplification buff. There are few units who can maintain such a tempo, one of them being Tsukiko, whose Limit Burst is ultimately locked to Earth. Cleome, however, remains a flexible damage dealer, meaning she's not necessarily locked to fire. There is one major issue though. Cleome's damage modifiers, even after their buffs, just aren't that great. You might even say they're really bad for a new unit, especially when they're seasonal. While she can make a name for herself in the damage rankings, it's only because of her stored magic buff, but guess how many times you can use that? You could try to rectify this by giving her that special stored vision card, but then you still have to fill her heavy Limit Burst. On that note, once her Magnet's abilities are used, she'll have to rely on others for support, as it'll get to the point that she'll lack a magic buff. Nevertheless, despite her relatively low damage modifiers, Cleome stands out as a fire damage dealer with reliable access to a powerful buff, and it's with that she'll remain a strong contender regardless. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, leave a like and subscribe. Comment below if you summon Lunar Festival Cleome. Personally, those damage modifiers are a bit too low without external buffs. Though she thrives really well as a fire damage dealer, she might not be a necessity for someone with a well-developed inventory. Nevertheless, Cleome's a unit who will benefit greatly from some damage modifier buffs, as her kit's got some powerful potential. Unfortunately, that's probably why her damage modifiers are so low.